My name is Natasha Omokhodion-Kalulu Banda, and I'm an author and also the founder of Copper Monstera, which is a new publishing firm that I've started in Zambia, Central Africa. I'm an author, the author of one published novel, another one to be published soon, but also various short stories that have come out of my part of Africa, but have been shared with Pan-African anthologies, and recently one that's come out in the United States through HarperCollins. And when I first started this journey, I found that it was very difficult to find what to do with the stories that I wrote, or even just to find out whether it was validated that I wanted to write, that I wanted to share certain observations or experiences through the writing process. And so I'd write this stuff and it had nowhere to go. And during the process, I was fortunate enough to begin to find sort of collaborations that were happening around the continent, which were inviting us. And in fact, the first one I ever did that I shared was a call for an anthology in Zambia by our Women Writers Association. And when I started to submit my work to places like that, what that did was it validated my work, it validated my experience, and it validated my art form. So when I started to see that, there were very few at first, but pretty effective because of the collaborations that were taking place within the country and through different other countries on the continent. So that led me to look around, feel the industry, see what it was like. And I realized that there was a gap. There was still more that we could do for other writers who are in a position such as myself, get them published, get them out there, and get their work through the professional process to get it out to industry. Now, I haven't yet published anyone else. I've been fortunate enough to publish my own work, which has gone on to other markets, South Africa, Canada. It's due to come out in the UK this September. But I would like to do that with many other artists who were in the same position that I was just a few years ago. My first publication, or at least the first story that went out to publication, my first two stories. So the first time I had one was in Zambia through our Zambia Women Writers Association, through a collaboration that they did with the Chinese government, which was good for all the other artists that not just featured in it, but the ones who also didn't get into it, because we got to practice for the first time what it was like to actually be published. We got paid for our work, which was something that was not very common. And again, that's why I say that it's very important for me to participate in anthologies or any cross collaborations which can empower a young artist who has nowhere to send their work. The second time was Hotel Africa, which comes out of Cape Town, South Africa, also a Pan-African initiative. And more so than publishing, what was fortunate that came out of that process for me was I submitted my work 1 year. It was not good enough, so I got rejected. But the following year, because I was on their rejection list, I was invited to a workshop. So that was very helpful because, again, those tools and trainings were not something that you see every day. And again, it was a cross-country collaboration. So we had published authors come in from different countries, and they did it, I think, in 3 African countries, I think Malawi, Zambia, Botswana, and Kenya, 4. So that was very helpful. And I could say, arguably, that it became the start of what I now started to see seriously as a potential career and something I could take all the way. And also gave me the courage, because now I met people who had actually written novels and published them. It gave me the courage and impetus to now prepare my first novel, which began at home in my dining room. My family really rallied around me, but when it was done, I self-published at first. And then, like I said, it was bought in another market, taken in another market, and is now coming out in the UK globally. So, if it wasn't for those platforms prior, I would not probably have gone all the way and seen how far it could go. I think with every new collaboration that we embark on, it's always new. So the best part is it's new, no one's done it before, so you get to all do it for the first time together, in the sense that it's the first time you are working together on something. And always it starts with at least the same intention, same motivation, but the practical side of it will always bring us challenges that we have to overcome together. And initially, I think, depending on your mindset or your beliefs, everyone's coming from what they already know, right? So everyone's coming from a place perhaps of a little bit of resistance because what they know is correct, or what is in their region is what is perhaps different from the perspective of the other that you're working with. So for me, I see it like every new collaboration is a brand new identity on its own, a brand new chance to have minds who think the same, at least in the intention, right, come together towards one thing. And I always think that's just remarkable. And I really do think that's one of the advantages or blessings of being human. You get to do it each and every time and learn something new and do something new and impact in the long run. As I say, the challenges always are everyone's coming from a place of what they know. But I think during the process, then you start to align, right? Because hopefully you start to see things differently from the perspective of the other person and so on. And I think it expands our approach to things, our approach to each other as we go on. But it would be interesting to see what it looks like if the personnel on the projects had also the time to have workshops perhaps, or something that gets us together that align our vision more. I mean, I know we sort of will meet online, etc., but it's so much more different when we meet in person, right? And when you're able to talk and exchange, knowledge exchange, essentially, I'm saying, is the biggest advantage that comes from it. And I think it makes us all richer for it. It makes the history of whatever it is we've done for the next people who do the same kind of collaboration, and so on and so forth. It grows the institutional knowledge globally. So I'm in support of any kind of cross collaborations such as this. On the other hand, the results, for instance, for me, we're working on an anthology, and I see that when we look at the work, it's very evident that perhaps we as the implementers outrightly said, let's do a collaboration and let's have something that people will write about Central Europe and Southeast Africa, and we're going to have an anthology. But the truth is, when you do look at the work, it's so blatant and such a big gap, because through the work you can see that, okay, so these guys on this side of the world know nothing about that side of them. Those guys on that side of the world know nothing about this side of the world. So, the good thing is then we know that, right? So now we have to see how best to bridge things. And I guess it gives us a chance to expand the knowledge of the people who are contributing and the people who will be reading a publication such as this. But it can only start with a collaboration such as this, yeah. So the anthology right now, we've been lucky enough we did a call for submissions, a public call for submissions, which was narrowed down to a long list. And as co-editors on both sides of the globe, we've selected our stories, which will be announced today. And so at this point, we're just announcing, but going forward, we'll now look to working with the authors, sharpening the stories and getting them ready to be shared. Sure. So you've asked me two things. I will start with the difficulties of a collaboration, which I think fortunately haven't been too crazy, but like I say, I think it just is, you have two sets of people, or at least geographically in different locations, with different views or ways of looking at things based on their own conditions and environments and the way things work, where they come from. So the challenge is to become aligned, because you already have a common goal, that's great, but how do we align our values? I mean, the values are already the same because we're working on the same thing, but how do we align the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we produce what we intend to? So I wouldn't call it so much a difficulty. I'll call it something I'm looking forward to, going through, right? So it's a challenge, I see that, but overcoming that together, I think, then becomes something we'll see. And then it becomes, I think, like I said, something that other people can work with going forward. So I think ultimately we're creating this institutional knowledge of how to work together, how to partner, what this culture is like versus what that culture is like. Freedom of movement is an obvious issue. It would be great, again, like I said, if we could just see each other and work together in person. It's so much more different than sending texts or like quickly seeing each other on a screen. So I do hope that going forward, we're going to be able to see an equality in how we're able to move around the world. I don't like the words like rich countries and poor countries, because I'm not from a poor country. So it would be nice to see you guys come to our side of the world and us come to this side of the world whenever we have collaborations which have the potential to make an impact, such as this one. I'm a dual national, so I don't have visa problems at the moment, but I once did, because my country, there was a time that we also didn't. It was you choose one or the other, and I was always Zambian, according to my passport. But now I have two. So for me, I can speak from the point of view of having experienced both sides of the fence, right? Not being able to move as freely, and then suddenly being able to move freely. And I will say that definitely is something the world should be addressing now. I don't think we're in the same place that we were 40 or 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. And I think even things like the COVID, like the pandemic, shows us that we could need each other depending on where in the world you are. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter where you are. You may need refuge with us, we may need refuge with you. So I hope that things like that can start to be addressed from our policy level globally, coming down. Yep. Survival, first of all, is exciting. It's different. It's always good to have different, because we get to learn. We get to have a first. It's my first time in this part of Europe. The weather is lovely. Thank you for inviting us this time of year. And it's just always eye-opening to learn something new. We're steeped in history, just where we are, location, the way you do things different from where we do things, as I said. That's always great for knowledge exchange, because my mind already is like, oh, I think we could sort of like replicate this. And, I'm thinking of a place in Garden Compound where we have like, what do they call it? Like where they sell old sort of vintage things, or like,
Flea market.
It's not a flea market, it's an auction house, with the old automobiles and the old TVs and I'm like, oh, actually, for the first time though, I'd never thought of it before, but now that I'm here, my mind's already working on what is possible, which is what any artist does when they travel, when they move, when they see things. So the knowledge exchange is great. The panels are informative and important. I think there's agency in the topics that we're discussing. And yeah, I'm grateful to be here, so thank you very much for having me. Coming to Poland has been very nice. It's been a really nice time of the year. The weather's lovely. People friendly. I think we had, it was a long flight. We sort of got, I wouldn't say stuck, but our luggage was left in Frankfurt, so we had to wait a whole day in Warsaw. But we had fun with my colleague Samba. Talking all things history and books, so that's always fun. And instead of flying, we got to come by bus, so that was like a different experience as well. I think just things like experiencing the public transport in a country is always sort of tells you what it's like. And we were like, are we lost? The buses just keep coming in and out so quickly. And we're like, oh, we're going here. And they're like, no, that's not where you're going. And we're like, oh my gosh, but that's what the timetable says. So that was a bit, made us a bit angsty, but we were helped by Paulina. She was very kind. She was able to send us, she's like, don't worry, your bus is delayed. I'm like, oh. And it wasn't just us. There was another lady, we showed her what you sent. And the lady was like, oh, thank you, because we were all panicking. We're like, oh, if we're left here, that's like another day, maybe sleeping in the airport. But it's been great. Weather's lovely. Language is different, so it's like, which is how it must feel the other way around, like for people who don't speak English when they're in an English state. So it's different to be on the other side where all the signs are in Polish and we're English speaking, but that's always exciting in the sense that you're learning something new and learning to be the different one. Interestingly, in the last book that I've just written, I had to do a lot of research on the Zambian independence story, which takes place in terms of research, anything between the 40s and 1964. And quite interestingly, there's quite a lot of information about Polish refugees who came to what was then Northern Rhodesia. Beautiful pictures of them arriving by train, by the train load. Sort of like at that time, it was like villages that they set up for them to stay in, I think in Tanzania and Zambia, so the Jewish Polish people. So for me, it's always been that connection that, oh, I wonder what would happen if we were to share that or discuss it or look for those Polish families. And so for me, from a historical point of view, it's interesting to be here, having that knowledge sort of in the back of my mind.